Hello, everybody. So, the treatment of Indigenous peoples in North America meets the United Nations definition of genocide in every single qualifier listed by the UN. Within this discussion video, we don't have enough time to even do a brief summary of what has happened over the last several centuries in North America and how it continues to permeate society even today. So, the Canary Effect documentary details many of the ways in which Indigenous peoples were the victims of genocide, including the 1970 Family Planning Act, where it's estimated that up to 42% of Native women of childbearing age were sterilized, forcibly sterilized. This is definition number 4 of genocide, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. It also talked about the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which forcibly displaced somewhere between 50 and 100,000 Indigenous peoples, forcing them to traverse through unlivable and hostile environments where food and water were not guaranteed, and neither was survival. They were never meant to survive. So this falls under definition 3, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. And so, definition number 5, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, which, as we read about in the Department of the Interior's investigative report and the BBC article about unmarked graves found at residential schools, countless amounts of children were taken from their homes and communities and taken to residential boarding schools where unimaginable abuse and violence took place. So, why these histories matter for teachers? Well, there are so many reasons. And I think the easiest one to respond with is that we don't want to perpetuate harmful narratives, right? But we also need to consider that historically, education has been used as a weapon against Indigenous communities, literally ripping children from their families. And then the categorical whitewashing and rewriting of history in ways that erase the experiences and the trauma of Native people. If we don't teach accurate histories, we contribute to the erasure of Indigenous experience and the continuation of colonial thinking. Um, but when we do teach the accurate histories, we then create space for healing, truth, and justice. We cannot leave the past in the past when its ramifications and consequences continue to impact, in part, harm even today. In the Columbus Parable by Tom Trimmer, the critique of hero worship around Columbus exposes how foundational narratives often celebrate the beginning of the Indigenous genocide. Columbus's arrival marked the start of centuries of exploitation, dispossession, and dehumanization of Indigenous peoples, yet it is still widely celebrated. And we must decide whether we are complicit in this celebration and continue to perpetuate this harmful rhetoric, or if instead we will bring safety, understanding, and honesty into our classrooms. And finally, it is so key for us to know these histories because they continue to leave their mark as intergenerational trauma. Even today, the suicide and PTSD rates for Native youth are 3 times the rates found for the general public. And we need to do better. And the best way to do better is by knowing better. And so we need to keep learning with an open mind and an open heart in order to do the best for our students.